The true highlight is, as always, our guest speaker, the keynote speaker. Well, it's actually a fireplace chat. But the keynote speakers we invite are usually quite senior, and we started in 2016 with Lord Brown, the former CEO of BP. His biography, Beyond Business, inspired us to call the event Dinner Beyond Business. This year I feel very honored and proud that Shivaji Dasgupta, I hope I pronounced it correctly, accepted our invitation to come to this event and to join the Beyond Business part of this evening.
Thank you for the invite.
You're welcome. Shivaji is Chief Data Officer at Unicredit, located in Milano, Italy. I guess you've all been to Milan, which is a wonderful city. He combines exemplary commitment to diversity with experience and know-how in top management. Born and raised in India, he then completed his doctorate in physics in Munich, where he also started his career at McKinsey. Prior to his current position, Shivaji worked for Deutsche Bank as a European Chief Data Officer and CIO ESG. Okay. At Unicredit,
whatever that is.
What is it?
Is it ESG is
ESG.
Exactly, it's one of the most important topics.
Currently.
And I was sorry.
Currently,
it is one of the most important topics. And at the bank, it was very important that we had the technology support getting to the ESG records. Like everybody who's working on ESG knows, it's all about numbers, right? You have to meet the data, and so I was building the backbone of the technology for this.
Okay. At Unicredit, he now leads and implements strategic initiatives on data and control functions across the group in 13 countries. Being an out executive, I'm now curious for his experience in corporate world and his experience on the field. So please welcome Shivaji on stage, but you're already on stage.
I'm already on stage, so thank you.
Shivaji, I would like to talk with you about 3 topics. Each are different but equally important, I would say. I would like to talk with you about your experience as an out executive, the business benefit of diversity, maybe also LGBT diversity, and also allyship. Let's start with your experience as an out executive.
Okay, so my experience as an out executive is not very long. It's I outed myself pretty late in my career. I mean, with 35 or 36, I outed myself not only in the professional field, but also with my friends. And the reason being, having been brought up in India, having been brought up in a very conservative background, it was still illegal to be homosexual under the Indian law, and it was actually illegal till 2018. So I was always scared that I would go back, and if it would come out, what would happen if I would not be able to come out of the country. And so it was always a little bit of a difficult situation. At the same time, it was also something where I didn't know how to confront my parents with this. So I would be quite reserved about this topic, and I know you'll come with other questions regarding this, probably when you say what's in it for business, so I'll touch upon that later. But for me personally, I think the coming out journey started pretty late, but in the 7-8 years now that I've been out, I think I would say 99% has been extremely positive. People all of a sudden know that if you are open to them with this kind of information, you can really be trusted with some other information. So that's why at companies, at executive levels, you get that added bonus of trust when you are quite open and honest about it. That's my experience. Also, the teams are much more open. Now, the 1% where it's not positive, I think it can be in any field of life, right? It's not only on LGBTIQ or any other parts of life, diversity. But unfortunately, because I left McKinsey and joined at an executive level, let's say, I've had the good fortune that not many people are adverse on the face, because I could have the power to do something, but you do have the adverse, weird comments from time to time, right? That, oh, we didn't know you are homosexual because you're not the prototype. And you're like, what is the prototype? I mean, is there a prototype? Or because you don't look it, or something like that. But that's from time to time, you would have it, no? So, but more or less, I would say, more often than not, I'm very happy that I'm out, and the executives are also respecting it.
You said that you gain a certain amount of trust from the other people, and they, you get different conversation. Just an experience from my side. My husband is the president of a world association, whatever, and last week was a conference in Rotterdam of this association, and there were so many, because he's out, he's the first out person in this organization, and because he's out now, so many people tell him about them being part of the community, even, or also, having kids and whatever.
Yeah.
Do you experience this as well?
Yes, I mean, one example, and I have some of my ex-colleagues from Deutsche here also. I mean, last year, after the war broke out in Russia, we had a tech center in Russia, and we brought the people who were working on technology from Russia back to Germany, or not back, but we moved them to Germany so that they were not affected by sanctions and we could still work with them. And we offered this to almost everybody. Many of them could not because they had very strong knit families. From the 1,500, about 800 came. And one guy was homosexual, and he reached out to me. I was at one of the events, meeting all these people, not in any particular reason for diversity, but just as executives at the bank. But he knew that I'm open, so he took me to a side and he said, look, I really need your help because my partner is in Russia and he has no connection to the bank, so the bank cannot help him to come here. But because we are exchanging emails and the country knows that I'm out, he is possibly under threat because they know now through the surveillance. It breaks your heart because I don't know what you can do, but at least being there and just being able to talk to him and saying, look, let's try to see or find some ways. Then there were other situations in other organizations where somebody who came up to me was non-binary, and this person did not want to be associated and just wanted somebody to talk to, and said, how were the first few months when you decided to come out? And you have to be very, this person was not in Europe or in a Western country, and you have to be very lucky. You have to consider yourself very lucky that I decided to come to Germany, and I was in Germany for the last 18 years. And it is such a welcoming, open society, liberal society. I can be anything.
Is it?
Well, in most of the places I've been, yes. And compared to many other societies, yes. If you go to other societies, I mean, you have to see the positives and recognize and do use the power as executives to also help these people who come up for, I don't even know if they come up for advice. Sometimes they just want to be heard.
Might be a very personal question. I'm trying to come back to my list of 100 questions I prepared. But you said you are not the stereotypical, or people say you are not the stereotypical type of gay person, and not the personal
I don't know what
outcomes.
that is.
How do you handle coming out or talking about this at work? I guess you're not walking around with a rainbow flag.
No, mostly not. So, what was the question, sorry? Do I carry the flag? No, I don't
No.
always.
How do you handle coming out, or how do you make it public? Well,
I don't hide it, let's put it this way. I mean, I don't have to talk about it all the time, or, I don't have, but that's not just about me or my husband or anything. I just don't have family pictures in the office. It's just me. It's very clean. I don't have anything. But if somebody asks, what did you do over the weekend? Then I'm pretty open. I went with my partner or my husband now, hiking. And once or twice you get the reaction, with whom? And you're like, yeah, with my husband. And like, okay. So, yeah, fine. But initially they thought I don't speak Italian. So somebody tried to correct me. No, you don't. Marito? No. You mean your moglie, Frau? I said, no, my husband. Okay. So, yeah, it's, I don't think if you try with a hammer to put it in, you have to also respect the other person's sensibilities, right? You don't know where this person is coming from. I have colleagues from not only 13 countries where we are active, but also many other countries. And for some of them, maybe they're not brought up with these sensibilities, and I have to give them space, right? So I live my life. I don't change myself, but at the same time, I don't have to force everybody to change themselves as well.
it reminds me to a lunch talk I had with Claudia Woody 2 years ago. It's one of our former speakers here. And she said, you have to make it ordinary, an ordinary topic. So not, this is something special, but just mention it.
Exactly.
Like you said, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And is being an out executive in Italy something different to being it in Germany?
No, I think Italy.
Our bias about Italy is that they are much more conservative.
Exactly. This was something I was told before I went, and actually my experience is it is extremely, extremely liberal, right? And I hope I'm not saying something wrong, but they had Ehe für alle, anybody could get married before it was in Germany. So I think they had the law prior to Germany. So. But nonetheless, I'm in Milan, so that's a cosmopolitan city. Maybe we are not comparing apples to apples, but my experience so far has been extremely liberal, extremely open. Nothing I have seen so far has been a shock. Unicredit compared to Deutsche Bank, there is also a group for diversity called Unicorn, and we are extremely active. And there is very, very strong movement. Compared to Germany, I think in general, and now I'm talking about diversity per se, I see more female representation in Italy. There is no question of quota. They don't have the government numbers. They don't have a KPI. But our board, for example, is 50% female, 50% male. So, I mean, without any push, it is the way it is. So, I think and that's just one feature, right? I mean, having female and the whole diversity in the company is quite strongly present. You see that also, I mean, just an anecdote, we had one gender transformation at the bank last year, and we have now formalized processes how to deal with that. So it is something that the bank is dealing with, that Italy is dealing with. That's my experience. Maybe it's limited, but I have not faced anything where I would say it's different.
Do you have any advice for LGBTIQ senior leaders? Why be out and loud as a LGBTIQ person?
So I think, as I was saying, right, I mean, I came out pretty late. And again, this was told by my McKinsey colleagues when they met me 6 years later or 5 years later after I had quit. And or even a year later after I had quit, and I came out pretty much after I quit. And they were like, "You're a different person." And I was like, "What do you mean you're a different person?" They were like, "You're so much more assertive, and you actually know what you want, and you actually tell people without hurting them, obviously, that you don't like something." And so I was like, "That's ridiculous." But the reason I think for this, and I introspected a little bit also with my coach, and I was like, why is it? I think the phase where I was not out, I was very, very careful not to upset anybody, because subconsciously I was just avoiding any confrontation. I was like, okay, what if it comes out, and what if this person uses it against me? Probably. Just having that lifted from your head and just having the freedom to be who you are gives you so much leverage, gives you so much higher productivity, I feel, because you can be who you are, and you don't need to hide something. And that's the reason for me, one of the most important reasons to be out. The second reason for me is, look, if you're an executive in a country or in a geography like ours, which is liberal, which is strong, you have to be role models for people who cannot. And if even we don't feel that we can come out, then we really need to introspect what's wrong with the society, right? I mean, I think we need to use the position to help people. Think of people who are, I don't know, in so many other countries, Uganda, who cannot do anything about it because they have a repressive government. But, I mean, thankfully in India, they have removed the law. It's not illegal to be homosexual anymore, but it's still quite a conservative society. I don't know if I could just do a session like this openly. Probably now, yes, slowly things are opening up, but I think we should all consider ourselves very lucky to be where we are and use that opportunity to help others.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who think we shouldn't make such a big deal about LGBTQ diversity in the workplace. How do you react to those people?
I mean, look, everybody has right to their opinion, right? So I think the fact that you still have discussions is a reason that we need to talk about it. I mean, just because we have ticked the boxes, we cannot be getting complacent, because you are seeing in geographies where things are going back. You are seeing in geographies where, even in European Union, where within the Union there are countries who are labeling cities to be gay-free, or they are proclaiming their election campaigns are based on bashing of certain communities, not just LGBTIQ+, but also bashing specific communities. And to be honest, if we don't stand up for each other, I mean, we are standing up for other minority communities also at the same time. That's what I feel. And that's the reason I feel extremely strongly that we do have to stand up. The question is, what do we do about it? As I was saying, I mean, no disrespect to anybody, but yes, we need to stand up for ourselves. Yes, we need to do this, but we also need to give others the space. And if we are forcing somebody to change their signature, or if we are forcing somebody to do, probably that may rub some people the wrong way. But not having an event, I don't think that's the solution. I think you should have these events, you should have these special mentions, but at the same time, give everybody the space. That's my personal way of dealing with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And then do those events and then do the discussions afterwards.
Exactly.
With the people who don't like the topic.
Exactly.
So let's move to the business benefit. From your perspective as a corporate leader, why invest in the diversity of your workforce? And why in LGBT diversity?
So I'll start with a very technical argument. And so I do data, right? And one of the aspects of data is also in artificial intelligence, and we are investing a lot. So what is artificial intelligence? It's basically recognizing patterns in the historical data. Now, who created these historical data? Mostly non-diverse communities. Because these were very homogeneous, they were kind of inputting their information. Now, if you let, in the future, AI decide based on these homogeneous sets of data for a society which is not homogeneous anymore, you will get extremely biased decisions. So from my perspective, I mean, it's a very technical reason, but from my perspective, you have to make the base diverse who are developing these algorithms, who are testing these, who are correcting, checking the data, so that the decisions made are diverse, so that you do not have any bias. And I would just scale that up for the entire corporate, right? I mean, this is very technical for AI, but if you scale it up in every phase of any decision that we take at corporates, we need to bring in diversity so that decisions are not single phased. That's for me the biggest benefit. At the same time, do we attract different customers? Do we attract different communities? Probably, but I think that's the secondary advantage. The primary advantage is as a company, as an executive, for me, it's important that we take well-formed decisions for the society of tomorrow and not limit ourselves with decisions based on, let's say, yesterday's data. That's for me the main reason why we need a diverse base. No.
You've always worked in consulting and very tech-related fields.
Yes.
Do you think people in consulting and tech are more open?
Do I have a comparison? I don't know. I mean, look, when I came to Germany, I'm half Jewish, right? So when I came to Germany, people told me, why are you going to Germany? They don't like them. So I was like, come on, it's not the same Germany. So I came here. Then my parents came here, and after like half an hour, they were like, is he German? I was like, yes, he is. But he's nice. And so I was like, yes. So, and now they love Germany. They are coming here all the time. So, well, for a while not, but they have been coming here. So I don't think you can have these boxes. Then I decided to go in consulting, and people were like, you cannot be so open because you have to be the way your clients are. I think I have had McKinsey, the best parties ever. Well, the clients should not know. Sorry, no, we didn't. But no, but then
you paid for their part.
No. So, but it doesn't work that way. But thereafter, when I decided to go into financial services, also, it's very conservative, and then I went to Italy. It's going to be conservative. So I have not faced that one thing is different than the other. I think it all depends on how you interact with the people. So in the tech field, sure, you can be interacting with the big techs and think, it's all open, everything. You can also in tech field be interacting with stakeholders on the other side who are very conservative because they need to deal with things to be done. So you have to strike the balance. The good thing is all these fields are changing. So I think we all need to start thinking how we work across different fields, and nothing to do with diversity per se, but I think industrial boundaries are also swimming. So financial sector, industry, or technical, I think it's all becoming much more ecosystem-like. So that's how we also should be shaping ourselves. That's
Yeah, looking back at my 20 years in diversity, it was actually really the tech companies like SAP, IBM, and also the banking industry, not the insurance ones, the banking, who started, and companies like, I don't know, chemical or pharma or whatever, they joined later.
okay.
And the big question is,
Why?
why?
I wouldn't know. Maybe also it's a question of talent acquisition, because if the more openness you show, the more inclusiveness you show, you do attract certain talent. I have been very fortunate to work in companies which have been very open. I have not had a single company where somebody has come up to me and said, please don't tell anybody. I mean, I had a funny interview once. It was in banking, but it was a completely different geography. And this person asked me, okay, so it was a final interview and they wanted to make me an offer, and they said, we'll send it to you by email. Just a few final things to check. And I was like, I have a question. Will you provide the visa to my husband? And this person was like, to whom? And I said, to my husband. He said, I don't understand the question. I said, no, my husband, the visa. He said, we don't have something like that in our country. So I was like, okay. And he said, no, but it's better than having an unmarried girlfriend. So we'll try to get you something. So, and I was like, okay, maybe. But then 2 days later, they said, no, we found somebody else. So it was pretty good that I didn't go there. I mean, I would not have taken the offer anyway after this kind of discussion. I was like, okay, this guy, but that's why, I mean, you can have banking, tech, everything, but still you can have such companies, depends on the geography. So,
well, some people, it very much depends on the people you deal with.
It depends on your circle of environment where you are working. Yeah.
So coming back to the topic of your former employer, ESG.
Yes.
A lot of companies are only driven by the reporting requirements of the ESGs. Actually, that's currently very much the case. Is the compliance perspective enough reason to do LGBTIQ diversity?
It's not enough reason, but it's one big reason to do it. I mean, as we said, diversity is important. Companies are realizing. From compliance perspective, from compliance perspective, I think there are studies which have shown that more diversity you have, the less anti-compliant practices are there, because people are checking in different ways. So I think it is a good reason to do it, but as we discussed, I think there are very good business reasons, there are very good corporate reasons to do this also. The fact that, I mean, I'm doing ESG also at Unicredit, so it's not just my previous employer. I'm doing the same IT part for Unicredit also. And the good thing is, if you look at ESG, especially on the social and the governance pillar, if you get those right, that affects very strongly the economic part, the environment part, and not just for the company, but for society as a whole. So it is extremely important that we pay attention to it, to the world that we want to live in the future. And we are in positions, I think all of us are in positions where we can make a difference. So we should push the executives, our co-executives, to support. And there, I think also the point that you were saying, where allies become so important. These are just health factors like ESG, etc., which help you support your cause, but it is not the only reason to do it. And if you do it only for this, I think everybody realizes that you're just doing it for ticking the box, and then better not do it. I mean, if you're doing it just for this, I think it's a pretty wrong reason to do it. I would rather that it comes from within. Yeah.
Nowadays, we see quite a lot of backlash regarding LGBTQ rights across the globe, Hungary, even the UK and the United States, when it's all about trans rights. Why is it important that companies stand up for LGBTQ equality also in the society, and how can corporate advocacy efforts drive societal change?
I think the biggest thing is that, look, we as companies want to work with the best talents. I think none of the companies would say that we don't want the best talents, right? And I can speak at least for my team who I work with, none of them would want to work for a corporate which does not stand up against this kind of nonsense, if I can say. I mean, that's the reason why if companies are standing up to this, it is a sign for their employees. I was reading a nice quote today that, the reason why many people are wearing or companies are using the pride colors does not necessarily mean that they belong to the community. But the reason they are having the colors or they're showing it is because many people of the community are still afraid to show it. And that's why they are showing it, so that the person can feel safer. And I think that's the reason why corporate advocacy becomes important. And for me, corporate advocacy is much more a reason to do this than just ESG rating, right? So it is making us look as corporates at the core values that we stand for. Yeah.
This brings me to corporate advocacy. We asked our corporate partners to support us with our position paper for the Selbstbestimmungsgesetz in Germany. We realized with the blood donation, because donating blood for gay people was not possible in the past, and because we, with the corporate support, put pressure on the government, things changed, and we want to do this with the Selbstbestimmungsgesetz as well, because the liberals in Germany are not willing to support this topic, and they're really hindering. So if you have not signed the position paper, contact us. We are still looking for companies. We need some big brands, because otherwise the politicians won't hear or listen to us. Coming back to AI. You're an expert in this topic. Hopefully.
I can talk about it.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know, expert.
What kind of possibilities AI offers to drive LGBTIQ inclusion?
So, AI per se drives inclusion in the sense that it's making everything a commodity. I mean, I was just discussing with somebody at work yesterday that, ChatGPT, some of you may have used it or know about it. So it has made one of the most complex forms of AI very, very commoditized. Everybody can use it. For the inclusion part, I think what AI can do and what AI is already doing is the personalization. So how can you personalize the offerings that we have so that, previously a bank person, just taking the bank example, when you opened an account, this person said, okay, male, female, and then you got the communication according to that. Now, not just AI, but any analytical or any data-driven, you can choose yourself, you can change it in the app, and then the communication is set according to that. And the language you can choose. You can be chosen to be spoken by the same message without extra cost for the corporate. We can actually position either with per Sie, per Du, anything that whatever the person feels comfortable with. In genderized communication, you can change the language based on the wish of the person. Also inclusion per se, I mean, going beyond LGBTIQ plus, I mean, we have invested also at Unicredit a lot also in doing hackathons and trying to focus on, can we find some new AI use cases to have inclusion, like, apps which can work for physically challenged, or how can an app help a visually challenged person. These are things, I think this is a very, very important area that we need to look at. It's not always the first priority, unfortunately, but also inclusion of people who don't speak the language properly, right? So I think supporting them also last year during the war, or when the war started against Ukraine, you saw a lot of apps being developed so that Ukrainians could use that for the language. So I think those things with AI you can develop much quicker, will help in including people and including groups, let's say, much better. Sorry.
It's all right. So let's go to the last topic, allyship. How can allies be beneficial for our community in companies?
So as I was saying, I mean, when people do not feel comfortable coming out, but they see somebody with the colors, they see somebody talking about it openly, not only from the community, but also from outside, it gives you an added confidence, it gives you an added trust to come out and just be yourself. And I think that is the biggest value of an ally. And that is something which, that is something which I think we have very, very strongly. The foundation has worked in the last year. When I look with your network at Deutsche Bank, also at Unicredit, the allyship is working extremely strongly. And at times I do see people and they come up and say, can we do more? And I think the fact that they are being so open and so allied is extremely positive. It's extremely helpful for us to feel welcome, to feel at home.
Why do you believe we need especially also executive allies?
It also shows that at the top level, at the executive level, this topic is not a taboo. It's normal. So the head of HR at Unicredit, she's taking part in the Pride. She's there. She's promoting this topic as an ally, and I think that sends a very, very strong signal across the organization that it's from the top. We have a person we can go and talk to if there is something, and any behavior which is going against acceptance will not be tolerated. So this is definitely a good thing and a positive impact for the company, and extremely valuable if you have top executive allyship.
My last question, maybe also again a personal one. What do you expect allies to do as an ally? So maybe as an advice for the 40 people here. Not all of them are allies, but some are even, LGBT as far as I know. But what can they do in a very concrete way to show their allyship?
Stand up. I mean, speak up and stand up. I think that's the most important thing. There are situations which I've had, not specifically to LGBTIQ, but passing remarks like, at one company in a big call, they said, when I was kind of constantly saying, I do not want to make a slide like this. This is extremely complicated and stuff. And they said, yeah, for Indians, everything is complicated. And I was like, what? Where nobody stood up, right? And I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do? I'm like this junior guy. Am I supposed to go and talk or not or this? Now, if somebody would say something like that in a call, probably not to me, but if something like that happened, for me, standing up, speaking up is a must.
Take some more water.
Yeah.
Having heard all this, are there any questions from the audience? Maybe we have someone with a microphone because we're taping this session.
And don't worry, I can still talk.
Do you need some alcohol? Maybe it's easier then.
That's it.
No questions, come on. This will be the first dinner. Donna, could we have a microphone? All right.
It's not necessarily a question. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm now for the second time at this dinner, and I just realized how much more I understand the need, and there actually still is very much of a need for us as employers to get more engaged and stand up, and that people like you stand here and tell their story helps us as allies to better understand what we can do and how important it is still.
Thank you.
Any other question? Do the ladies first.
As LGBTIQ plus topics are just one of several diversity topics there are, do you have any experience or do you see any kind of competition arising between the different, know what I mean? Because that's something I kind of start seeing out there, that the different initiatives are kind of competing for allies, competing for visibility and all of that. What's your experience?
I don't see this as competition per se, but yes, I do see from time to time. I've had calls where they said, yeah, but for this year the focus is on gender diversity. Next year we'll focus on other diversity.
But they've been saying this for many years in a row.
So no comments. But look, I feel at the end of the day, if the workplace becomes diverse in any direction, at the end of the day, it's going to help all of us. So whatever it is, many colors, many gender, many topics, I think at the end of the day, what matters is we all feel represented to some extent, and we all feel inclusive. So I don't see it as a competition. I don't see it as a big change. And to be honest, people who are true allies, they are allies for the diversity. They are not allies for, I'll be an ally for gender diversity and not be an ally for LGBTIQ+. I'm yet to meet a person who is supporting only women but is against LGBTIQ+. I haven't seen anybody. So I think if you're a supporter or an ally for diversity, you will stand up for all causes. Yeah.
Hi, so thank you very much for your story. I suppose it links to the one piece of advice that you would say that you would give to the allies. But I want to now switch it back and say, I'm sort of contemplating at the moment and thinking about how easier it is for the younger generation today to be out because of social media, because of the acceptance that can come from that. I mean, it flips either way, but it's a lot easier nowadays for the younger generation. And so my question sits around, what would you say to people in the executives who generally would be older in the community? What one piece of advice would you give to them to, in today's society with social media, that they can role model what it means?
You know, I was talking to one of my team colleagues who's probably 2 generations younger, so very, very young guy, and he was actually confiding that for them it's not so easy coming out because there's so much focus. He's like, I don't know what, if I say something on TikTok or whatever, these platforms, what is going to happen? I'll lose my followers. So there is so much fear of loss, whatever it is, right? I mean, you have to respect that for them belonging is probably the number of followers they have. So one piece of advice to the other generation is be open and talk to them, because there is probably more common than we think. So I started doing something 2-3 years ago, what I call reverse mentoring, right? I mean, we had it at Deutsche, but then I also started doing it at other places where I go openly talk to the people who are not only from age, but also probably from the tasks, doing different stuff in different parts of the organization, just to understand what differentiates us versus what is similar. And more often than not, yes, the superficial or the on the face of it, we are very, very different. But if you go to the root causes, what causes some anxieties, it's mostly similar, and that could be that could be actually an icebreaker that could also foster much more collaboration. And by the way, at one company where I worked for long back, they, under diversity, they had also the group age diversity, because they thought that people in the other generation were feeling left out with technology coming in and everything. So they actually had people going in and spending time with them to show how smartphones work. And I mean, so there is a lot we can do.
Reverse mentoring is fantastic. That's definitely.
Perfect. And one last question from Gesa. Two more. Gesa and then Dominic.
Yes, thank you for your talk. And I have a question about what do you think about the possibility for international companies to influence politics? Because you told you're living in Italy, we have a quite near to a right-wing government right now. You talked about the US and about UK, but we have the situation in eastern parts of Europe and in the Far East. And we learned a lot about how companies try to influence laws for LGBT people. Do you think there's a chance for the Unicredit or for other companies really to influence law?
Interesting question. So I think companies on these topics are using much more the soft power, and we also have to be there for our customers as well as offer the safety for our own employees if they are in our community. And LGBTI plus community maybe in some countries may not be safe, so we have to also make sure that we are not putting their life at danger, because there is life outside the bank as well. So yes, there is work we can do, and there is a lot we are doing. On the political part, I think as a society, if we can, with the ESG, with all the compliance, if we are moving the needle slowly, we will influence the society as a whole. Can we influence real lawmaking in these kind of activity? I think we are talking. The question is, how strongly do you want to push the needle and be seen to be in your face with the government. I think some examples in the US are extremely interesting, like Nike or these when abortion laws were reversed, that they started offering specific packages to their own customers, their own employees, and similar things we at Unicredit offer our employees if they don't want to work in some geographies, to move them. You have transfer possibilities, but I think that is itself a signal enough to the government that if you're moving talent away, talent is leaving the country because of certain draconian laws, they would be thinking twice before doing it. I'm sorry, I don't have any any more strong answer than that, but I personally do not believe in too much of confrontation on these topics.
I'm not completely agreeing with you on this, because companies, do a lot that their own interest is recognized by the politicians, and they influence any lawmaking process ever. Why should they not also influence in those, soft topics? It's not really a soft topic, but in LGBT rights.
But it is. I mean, if you are saying that the company is saying that the country should have laws where talent should be able to flourish, but at the end of the day, you also have to see if it is a democratic government which has been chosen by the people on a political program which is of a certain direction, the majority is asking for certain laws, but you can still say, we as a company offer you a safe space. I think that's a much less confrontative, but you are still making you still take a stand against. But look, I don't know if my approach is the right one or the wrong one. I just have a less confrontative approach on this. Yeah.
Okay. And one last question from Dominic.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, which was really powerful, and I really enjoyed that. And you very openly shared some things around, coming from India, being half Jewish, being gay, and that sort of, I couldn't help but think about intersectionality, because it's one of the big topics that, when I work on intersectionality.
Intersectionality.
Yeah, because everybody obviously is defined by more than one community. So I'm more than just gay, or I'm more than just Indian in your case, or whatever it is. And I feel it's becoming an increasing demand to recognize that, and our current diversity efforts are still very siloed. And I was just wondering, given your own experience, and you kindly shared all these communities you're part of, is that something that plays a role? Is it something where you say, sometimes I identify more one way or the other, or it changes the way you act? Is that relevant?
Depends. I mean, if there's a Bollywood movie, I'd probably be an Indian. If there's a cricket match, I'd be Indian. But with hummus, I'm more Jewish. No, I don't know. I mean, it's different, and I never thought about it, and it probably has helped me move countries and go to different cities and get friends easier, because you're not so siloed in your thinking also. But it's funny, because my husband always jokes that I came from India, now I live in Milan, Munich, and he basically was born 500 meters from where we live. So he's like, I made a very far distance for most Munich people. So it definitely is enriching, but I never really take it as something that I actively looked at. But similar to what I was saying, if you are parts of the different communities, then you probably see the diversity as a much broader aspect than just having the one aspect of diversity. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Shivaji.
Thank you.
The usual box of presents, you know. Thanks very much for, yeah, actually, it has chocolate in it as well. I hope you eat it. If not, your husband will certainly eat it.
Oh, he does.
Okay. Thanks very much for, joining us for our
you.
dinner. Thanks very much for all your insights. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Same here. Thanks so much.
And before we continue, I wanted to make you aware of a little present we have for you, and you might have seen it at the entrance of the room. It's our Rainbow Chat deck. Unfortunately, it's only available in German at the moment, but we are working on an English version as well and making it available as an app too. Still, we consider it a very special possibility to reflect on one's opinions and knowledge about LGBTIQ topic. And if you haven't have it yet, take one with you. I think it's fantastic to, talk with your colleagues about this topic. It's a set of cards organized in 5 categories and a wonderful opener for conversations and exchange of the ideas of LGBTIQ, as well as broadening one's rainbow horizon. Thank you very much to all of you for supporting us, and enjoy your meal.